Welcome to Walking the London Road. Oxford United had a very big 3-fixture week this past week, and mixed results, let's be honest with ourselves. Joined with Connor and welcome for the first time this season, Will. Gentlemen, obviously a lot to dive into today, but how are we feeling going into this 3-fixture week?
Go on, Will.
Tom, we'll start with you.
What do you mean the week coming up?
We just had, so against Colchester.
We just had, sorry.
Stuff, obviously, the Hull.
I was feeling hopeful. I don't know if that's just maybe thinking back to last season. You know, we had a good start. Maybe we can do it again. Gary Rowett's form last season. If you look at just the time when he was manager, was actually pretty decent. You know, Portsmouth, Hull seems like going to be the low end of the table. I was thinking, you know, maybe we can get some results against them. Be honest, that was at the back of my mind because I was mainly thinking about the stadium. So I was hopeful. I'm glad about the stadium, but yeah, obviously with the results, it hasn't been what I think anyone was hoping for. It hasn't been terrible, but it hasn't. Obviously, it wasn't the start we were hoping for, basically.
Yeah, Sam, I went in pretty calm at the start of the week, thinking that Colchester would be a good opportunity after the performance against Portsmouth, and Rowett actually put out a fairly strong side. Well, I don't think it was even fairly. Maybe it was a strong side against Colchester. You know, get some minutes in the legs, which I think that's what we needed after pre-season, as well as maybe getting confidence back in a few of the first team players in the team. And going off the Colchester game, it wasn't the greatest of performances. I don't think. I thought that Colchester went away and they were they can count themselves unlucky, but still it was good for players like Goodrum to get a goal and others to put themselves about and stake a claim for maybe a first team spot. And then going into Hull, I think that was really the one that a lot of us were looking at, maybe out of the first two games, thinking that maybe we could do something there, expecting Hull to be battling around us, and unfortunately it didn't go away.
Yeah. So, look, quick mention of the Colchester game. As you mentioned, Connor, it was a good opportunity to get the lads a bit of run out. Almost acted as one final pre-season friendly to, we knew the players were at least a week behind on the rest of the division, so good to kind of get a run out for those boys. Like you say, Tyler Goodrum's got a really, really good goal. I don't think that man knows how to score tap-ins unless they're off his thigh like he did against Cambridge two and a half seasons ago. But like you say, Colchester were well up for it. I mean, part of that, I think that came down to us playing more like a League One side than a Championship side. But like you say, I thought Gatlin had a decent little cameo. Any other thoughts on the Colchester game?
No. I don't think the scoreline warranted the squad we put out, I'll be honest. I think if you're putting out a squad that strong against Colchester, I mean, no disrespect to Colchester, but we're a Championship side and we're putting out a really strong side. Yeah, you were hoping at least 3-0. But at the end of the day, we got through, so I guess that's that really. And we got a decent tie against Brighton.
Yeah, exactly. That's going to be an exciting one coming up.
Yeah.
So, go on, Con.
Yeah, I was going to say, in one ways, it's a good rule to got Premier League title, but on the you see it on the flip side, you couldn't have got a worse draw, arguably, against one of the. Were they the highest ranked Premier League team that we could have got? I think they were, and I have no doubt that they're going to want to go far in this competition, so they might bring a fairly decent squad.
Yeah, it was a conversation I was having on the drive up to Hull. Is that obviously I think Brighton will look at what Newcastle and Palace did last season and see the League Cup and the FA Cup later in the campaign as an opportunity to get some silverware, which like I say, doesn't really spell good things for us. Right, we've stayed away from the topic for enough time. I think we've got to talk about that whole game. Another trip to the MKM Stadium, another late disaster class. Oxford United lose 3-2. We're going to start by looking at the lineup. It was a similar-ish lineup to what Rowett deployed against Portsmouth. Two up top with Lancashire and Harris. Lancashire, of course, getting on the score sheet. Brannigan also scoring. But based on the first half, Rowett said he thought we should have been a couple more goals down. But how are we feeling going into half-time, lads? Con, we'll start with you.
So 50-50 really. On the one hand, you're looking at it thinking that we've given away yet again two sloppy goals, especially going down 1-0 down inside 60 minutes. And we'll get on to what the root of that problem is, I'm sure. But then on the other hand, you've got to praise the team's mentality to get back and be able to drag themselves back to go level, which I think based on the balance of play, particularly on the first half, we did not deserve to be drawing. The Hull should have been well out of sight, let's be honest, lads, within about half an hour or so. By the half-time whistle went, the game should have been done. So I think that you have to look at the negatives, but also take the positives. However, upon reflection of a whole, pardon the pun, you're taking away more negatives, especially when looking at the starting lineup. When during midweek, players like Curry, I thought that they impressed, and we were expecting maybe Curry to come in for Lee. And I think that was the biggest surprise that a lot of fans took away from the starting 11. As we mentioned last week, Sam, there's not really much at the moment, although there is a potential player that may be able to come in at centre half, swapping more out for Hellick just because of how similar they are, really. But again, it was another pretty underwhelming lineup. And then, as I say, underwhelming in the first half. But I think the dragging it back to 2-2 might have just papered over a few cracks going into half time.
Yeah. Well, what were your thoughts going into half time? Because I felt that, obviously, the Hull score in the first minute, and it seems to happen regardless of the manager. It's something that always frustrates me so much about our football club, that it takes till we're 1-0 down for the boy to wake up and realise, hang on a minute, we've got a game of football to play here, and to look, even slightly dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that at half time it was all Hull pretty much. They were all over us, and but the thing that I liked is that we had some fight about us, which is something that's sort of been lacking with Gary Rowett. Like we just didn't really seem to know when we were beaten. But going into half time, I had this sinking feeling in my stomach that we were going to play for the draw, and I just and that was pretty much confirmed when he made that swap. He took Harris off and he brought Sam Long on.
Yeah.
So that was yeah. So I was happy that we were fighting for it, and I was really hoping he was going to surprise me, Gary Rowett, and just sort of just go for it, just throw caution to the wind and just stay solid, because it was a pretty open game. I mean, they were pretty much all over us, but it was somewhat open. But yeah, I did have this sinking feeling that we were just going to sort of play to defend the 2-2 draw, which is what we did in the end, and obviously it didn't quite work out.
Yeah. As you say, Sparky came off at half time, which I thought was maybe a little bit unfair. He was running the hard yards, Sparky always does, but not creating an awful lot. Obviously, I think it's Mills, isn't it? Towards the back end of the first half, send the ball across the face of goal, and Harris is set on the penalty spot when I think Mills is expecting to be on the back post. But as you say, we end up going 5 at the back, very, very defensive, and it's the reality is that in these kind of games, sides around us, you can't afford to go so defensive. Like you say, it was clear that Rowett was, trying to hold out for the draw, but it was so deflating, I think. I'm just going to bring up the stats for this game, and if you want to kind of walk us through the second half as you saw it, because obviously, as we can see, it was an absolute demolition job on from Hull.
I mean, the second half. I mean, credit to the defending. What I mean is, like, they were throwing their bodies on the line, just desperate to sort of hold on to it, but we just didn't offer anything going forward. I mean, I remember Matt Phillips had that one good chance, didn't he? Then it was just a shot from outside the box. It wasn't even like a proper chance, you could call it that. And then there was one thing right before the final whistle. It was sort of bouncing around 6-yard box again. We'd just gone 3-2 down, and that's the only time they actually start to go for the game. I mean, yeah, it was just all Hull. It was quite a difficult watch, quite a tense watch. I actually thought by like 90 minutes, they haven't scored yet. Maybe we can hold out for this. It'd be a miracle if we did, but then obviously, I think on the balance, Hull got what they deserved, and so did we, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. Con, it was, I have to say, as Will says, when Matt Phillips has that shot, I think it's with 10 minutes left of normal time, my hands were on my head thinking, oh my God, is he actually going to score a goal here? Because fair credit, after he came on, he actually looked pretty decent. Him and Siriki had the exact same problem if they weren't helping their fullbacks, but in the attacking sense, I thought they were pretty decent, other than obviously Siriki's usual problem of being pushed off the ball. I don't know about you, Con. I think we're spot on in the sense that Hull got what they deserved. We did. They absolutely demolished us. And as good as the defender, the centre halves were, Longy looked really good. It was just we taken away all our creativity by going 5 at the back.
Yeah, well, I think that you two you've given a greater overview than I can, because obviously I didn't go and I've only seen the highlights. But I guess that if you're a stats guru and you're a slave to the stats, you can see that we have a greater. If you look straight at the stats, we look more potent in attack than we were last week, with just over 1 XG. If you want to really be clutching at straws, and Matt Phillips putting in maybe like one of his best displays in an Oxford shirt, other than the only other half memorable one being against Norwich. However, if either of you listened to the dub by Radio Oxford earlier today, George Ellick was right. Every single player in that whole side, or in that starting 11 rather, would be a key player in our side that would massively elevate our squad. And a club that's able to still sign players on a free and bring in loan players. And I'm sure that at some point we'll get onto transfers, and that's really not much activity going on at the moment. That's widely concerning. With regards to the back three, I don't know, Sam, but there are sometimes I'm thinking maybe we go ahead and try it, because pairing at centre back at the moment of Moore and Hellick just really isn't working. Unless you want to swap Moore for Long, he is what his natural position is, right back, but he can play left-sided centre back if he needs, or if Rowett needs. So it has actually come into my head thinking, do we go ahead and play three at the back with 2 wing backs, and whoever those wing backs are, I don't know. It's very concerning. If Hull were able to overrun us that much, I don't know about you boys and if you're going to Birmingham at the weekend, but I have a very deep-rooted fear that could be even worse than what Leeds was last season, when we got absolutely torn apart, because Birmingham just seems to be different gravy at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. The thing for me, like you say, I have thought, going into the game yesterday, even maybe the Portsmouth game, thinking maybe a 3 at the back could work. My main complaint though is how deep the wing backs are. That's my main issue, because when you've got wing backs so deep, and you're essentially playing a flat back 5, the creativity, even trying to progress the ball, out of your own half is massively diminished. And I felt that, we can get onto it in a minute, that Brodie Spencer, while he was good in the attacking third, I thought he was struggling, was getting overloaded in his defensive duties. Jack Curry came on and, didn't look himself. And there was a lot of last-ditch tackles and interceptions being made by Hellick, by Moore, and by Long. Well, when we're kind of seeing how, for example, Curry, when he came on with, I think it was about 10 minutes ago, he was getting overrun badly. Were you thinking that, obviously, might not be an option. We don't know if, Greg Lee was just absolutely shattered, but, that some of Rowett's substitutions have been a mistake?
Yeah, some of them have definitely been a mistake. I mean, I think just like this isn't really the question you asked, but his whole game plan of like bringing on Sam Long, going to more defensive was a mistake, and some of the individual players didn't really perform as well as they should have done. Also, with regards to so you're talking about 3 at the back, 5 at the back, it felt, especially during the first half and also during the second half, whenever Hull went forward, it felt like they had a plan. They had a way that they could kind of play through us. They knew our system. They knew where the weak spots were. But when we were going forward, it was just sort of hopeful, long balls, forward runs, or the throw-ins by Will Vaux. So yeah, I don't know. Some of the substitutions were a mistake, but I can't really think who else he could have brought on and what position they could have gone into. So I haven't really got an answer for that. It's a good thing I'm not a manager then.
Yeah, it is and we'll get on to transfers and stuff in a minute, because obviously we've got about
2 weeks.
13 days I think it is left of the window. It's or 14 days, I think. But I think it's the 1st of September. The window closes usually on at the end of the campaign. It's our lack of depth. Obviously, we know about the large amount of injuries we've got, but the lack of depth is a real problem. Like you say, Will, I am sat thinking, who else could we have brought on? And I like you say, we're not managers, so Rowett's had hundreds of championship games under his belt, and he's a very, very experienced coach at this level. But there is certainly I was saying this on the drive back with the people I was with, in the sense that Rowett's tactics are fantastic. They're exactly what you need at the back end of a season when you're looking to survive. They are absolutely, at least this way that Gary Rowett is playing, not what you need when you're looking to start a season. I know he said in interviews in the past he would, would want to play a sort of gegenpressing system similar to what Klopp does, but obviously he's a manager that adapts to what resource he has at his disposal. Even then, I question, is this all we're hoping for? I know Con obviously mentioned last week that we were warned as Oxford United fans that this is how Gary Rowett plays, and to expect to be bored out of our minds. And obviously there's 44 games to go, but it might be massively reactionary, but I'm really concerned about how we're going to set up, even going into the Birmingham game, like you say, because I've got a horrible feeling we're going to get absolutely trounced in that game.
Yeah, I think that might be a little bit reactionary. I think, from my opinion anyway, I think I'm going to won't cast any judgments until we get to September 2nd, because let's put it this way. Would we feel if we didn't have Rowett in charge, we would be saying we're done. We're completely fudged, essentially. Like Rowett, if we're going to stay up this season with what we have right now, Rowett, I feel a lot more comfortable with Rowett in charge than we do with, straight off the top of my nut, from about 5 or 7 other managers comparatively in the league right now. Mm-hmm. We were told, and as I said last week, we are all going to have to accept that we are going to have to take a lot of the rough with the smooth. And believe you me, based after the back end of last season, there's going to be a lot more rough than smooth. However, with Rowett, he's doing the best with what he's got and what he's being provided, and luck just hasn't been on his side this pre-season. Now, with anything in life, you need to be, as well as being incredibly well versed with what you do and having the knowledge and experience, all of which Gary Rowett does at championship level, you also need to have a bit of luck. But you also need support to be able to bring that success. And I want to bring your lads' attention, because it's been running through my head the past couple of weeks. At the start of the season, while in Indonesia, there was an interview that was done by local radio with Tim Williams. And I don't know why then, but no alarm bells went off. And I think alarm bells should have done then. His words, and I'm paraphrasing here. Look, our squad finished 17th last season. They've proven that they're a capable squad of being able to compete in the championship. There will only be an amount of money to add small additions to the squad. Now, that's me paraphrasing there. I don't know why that wasn't more picked up, and that seems to be exactly what we've done. Yes, what we've broken our transfer records in the past 2 or 3 signings, have I got that correct? Or in the past 2 or 3 windows, and we're still spending comparatively a fair wedge compared to what we used to spend. Mm-hmm. However, it's just a bit concerning that actually seems to be coming to light while there's other clubs around us that seem to be making, good signings that seem to be, doing something, whereas we just seem to be literally in past seasons, especially at the end of Robinson's reign, that it just seemed to be we were just picking up some of the scraps. I fear that might be what we'll have to go down, picking up some of the championship scraps. So the overriding point is that Rowett needs more support, and he's been so vocal the past few weeks. He's literally identified what he needs and placed all his cards on the table to the board to say, give me X, Y, and Z. And Ed, I don't think it's Ed's fault, because he's pointing out what we need. And if no support is being given to Rowett, then this is the best that he can do with that time. So there's only 2 games in. I'm not panicking yet, but if we do get relegated, or God forbid, at some point, if Rowett isn't supported and he says, you know what, I wash my hands of it, and he goes, there's no one else to blame but upstairs.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, didn't he recently? Sorry, Sam. I mean, didn't he recently do an interview? I think it was like yesterday or today with the Oxford Mail, and he said he's not certain there's going to be more faces coming in.
Yep.
Am I right in saying that? And
Yeah,
I mean, maybe I haven't been on Twitter enough, but I haven't heard of
game.
any transfer rumours or anything like that.
No, there's nothing.
The only thing that has been floating around is obviously Alan Campbell is back on trial with the club, which, look, as I thought he could have done a job, but he's not the creative number 10 we need. He's not the left-footed centre-half we need. And like you said, well, Rowett said that he's not sure if we're going to get any players back from injury in time for Birmingham or any new transfers. There has been a little bit of conflicting transcripts about that, because like you say, it's the way that I listened to it just before we started recording his interview with Nathan Cooper of BBC Radio Oxford, and he specifically meant it in regards to the weekend against Birmingham. But you are right in that the transcript that was put up by Liam Rice of the Oxford Mail did hint that he's not sure if any more are going to come in for the rest of the window. So we'll have to wait and see. Obviously, I want to get your take on kind of what you think we need, Will, because Conor and I discussed it last week in terms of, a number 10, left side centre half. Do you think those are our main areas of requirement for the rest of the window, or after yesterday have you got a little bit of a clearer view on kind of what this squad needs?
I don't really have a clear view of what the squad needs. Just depth in all areas, really. I know it's a pretty generic answer. I think also, if you consider, if you were to take our injury list is quite long. If you were to take all these players and put them into fully fit, I mean, take that into account as well. I don't know. I mean, yesterday it felt like everywhere had to be strengthened. The midfield had to be strengthened. The defence, the attack. I can't really think of probably a number 10 and probably a left centre half for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I don't know. I guess for me, I'm still sort of pinning a bit of hope on when those injuries come back, it'll be a bit better. When Kieran Brown comes back, our defence will be a bit more shored up, because he worked really well with Elliot Moore last season. I think he played every single game. I think I'm right in saying, or most games at least.
Last month,
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. I'm really not sure. Yesterday, and not to be dramatic, it just felt like we needed improvement or more depth in every area, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, it's reported this evening that former Oxford loanee Alex Matos, it looks like Watford and QPR are battling out for him. So, as Conor discussed last week, we're out of that race. Conor, you mentioned, or you hinted at the potential rumour that you'd heard about a centre half coming in. Could you elaborate that?
Did I?
Yes, you mentioned that a centre back. I might have misinterpreted what you said then. In that case.
Sorry, Sam. I will just say I did check the source of that Alex Matos rumour. It's not very credible, so I would take that with a massive pinch of salt.
Okay. Well, fingers crossed. I should also mention on the business that Alan Nixon, who has got a very spotty track record of, it must be mentioned, is reporting that Exeter are very keen on Owen Dale, so that might be a body going out. Obviously, let's turn our attention to the slightly more positive things. So, obviously, the most important fixture in this club's recent history happened on Thursday, and this is what we got.
That is 14-4, 3 abstentions and 1 against. The motion's carried.
That is confirmation by Cheltenham District Council that Oxford United will be given permission to build our new 16,000 capacity stadium. It now goes to the Secretary of State to approve, and a couple of Oxford MPs have given their support. Gents, obviously, it's a very, very important decision for our football club. We talked about it last week. Conor, Will, give us your take on kind of everything that you thought kind of going into that meeting on Thursday, and how you were feeling, because I know I was sat there for the 4.5 hours, bored out of my mind, and also almost tearing my hair out at some of the questions being asked by the councillors.
I mean, I think I'm quite lucky because I was at work for most of the meeting, so I was spared the pain of having to listen into it. Um, I think once they sort of like struck down that point about like the ancient woodland, I felt a bit more positive, and especially once the council officers recommended it for planning approval, I thought, okay, cool, we got a decent chance. But it's always in the back of your mind thinking it might just not work out. They might get their way, they
Yeah,
might delay it, they might do whatever. It is a massive, massive decision. I mean, not just in the like. Obviously, we got a home now, but if you think Oxford United have been searching for a permanent home well before we went to the Kasam. I mean, I think since like the 60s or the 70s, or maybe the 80s, when we were in the Manor, we were searching for a home then.
yeah,
The Kasam Stadium didn't really provide that, so this is absolutely huge for the club. I mean, can you imagine if, like, can you imagine if it had been rejected? We could have been beaten 10-0 by Hull. I still wouldn't have cared. I still would have been more worried about the
yeah,
stadium.
yeah.
So, yeah, at least a bit of positive news this week. Yeah, just huge for the club.
Yeah, definitely. Con, I know you and I certainly enjoyed ourselves on Thursday night with a couple of drinks.
Mhm.
But in the kind of cold light of day, it's there obviously are still some questions about it. There's been discussions about, if the everything goes to plan with the owners' project and Oxford get to the Premier League, is 16,000 going to be enough? I spoke to one of the designers who obviously also did Brentford Stadium and said there is, that has been slightly factored into the design, but obviously the most important thing is getting the 16,001 built. Was there any point, because I thought towards the kind of last hour I was starting to get a bit nervous. I was kind of very confident for like 2.5 hours, and then when it started to all get a bit the questions started to get a bit simplistic, and certain people started making statements, I was getting a bit nervy.
Yeah, thought that the last couple of hours up to the votes, I thought was a little bit of a mess. I didn't keep as up to date as I would have liked, but some of the stuff that I was reading online, it looks like that there were certain councillors on that board and certain members on that board that were just trying to delay the process to get to the vote,
Yeah,
and asking just some utterly ridiculous questions, some of which have nothing to do with football
mm-hmm.
whatsoever. Some of them, or a lot of them, seem like that they'd never been to even a sporting match in their life at all, to be honest. But a lot did raise some valid concerns,
Yep.
completely valid, like traffic. I mean, that's also one of my biggest issues and one of my biggest complaints about the traffic situation and how to get to and from the ground. But that will be, I'm sure, that will unfold in due time. But if we're looking on the bright side, yes, it's absolutely fantastic news. We're actually going to get a proper home, first proper home since the Manor. I'm sure that people now will be debating between now and then what we're going to call it, whose statues are we going to build, what the stand's
Yeah.
going to be called. So yeah, it's going to be really, really exciting times. And go back once more with the stuff that's going on the pitch. That's why the next few years on the pitch are going to be so important, that we are at least a competitive championship side, that we can get that investment to be able to fund this project. Because as much as Thohier has done, kind of going back on myself a little bit here, but as much as Thohier has put in his pocket, he's not going to write out £100 million check for this stadium. So in the short term, in the next 18-24 months, while spades are in the ground, it is so imperative that we are a consistently stable championship club.
Yeah,
I think I'll also
absolutely.
just make
Well,
what wait, sorry, I'll just make one more point about the stadium. Is like it's obviously a lot better for atmosphere, partly because we're in our own home. I think Carl Robinson said it a few seasons ago, like Sam, when there were a few issues about the ground. He said it's going to feel like we played 38 away games this season,
yeah,
and it can sometimes feel like that. Also, because I know the other division recently put out a statement where they're saying they're having a lot of issues with the stadium company, not letting them use flag covers for reasons I don't even know. I mean, I know the Oxford Ultras have a lot of problems with it.
yeah,
So I think it's going to be really good in that regard. I think it could be a proper, like, for the first time in a long time, Oxford is going to have like a proper fortress that we're going to enjoy playing in, and away teams are going to hate coming to, which I think is, yeah, just very important, really.
absolutely. I want to give a massive shout out to James Schnell, I believe is his surname, of formerly of this parish. Swiss Yellow on Twitter has been fantastic, holding the councillors to account. If you go on his Twitter feed, a long catalogue of all the actions of the opposition to the stadium, and I'm so glad that it got past Joel, just so his work didn't go to waste. Just so the work that other groups that have been working on this since we left the manor, their work didn't go to waste. I just want to touch on. We'll end on a nice fun note. Say theoretically, we get to choose which end we sit in. What would you like the name of your end of the stand to be? Because I'm going to go for the Joey Beecham end.
Oh, I'm. Go on, Will.
No, sorry, go on. You go on.
I was going to say, I reckon we should have something. We should have one of the stands to do with Mickey Lewis, Mad Dog. But I'm just trying to figure out in my head how we can do that.
I mean, I always quite like the London Road end, but the road behind it or in front of it, I don't know what orientation it's going to be. It's going to be the Banbury Road. So I wouldn't mind the Banbury Road ends. I guess that has a nice little ring to it.
Is it? Look, it's going to be Oxford and Freeze Way are the other side of it, isn't it? And
is it not the Banbury Road?
No.
Oh, okay, fair enough. My bad then.
But I have to say,
I wouldn't mind London Road carrying on then.
It's going to be quite weird to. I mean, I'm sure it'll have a million different names from us, the fan base. The new manor. I'm sure it'll have some kind of similar name to Brentford or Brighton's the community stadium. But like say, just the I don't care what it's called as you both said. I just care that we're going to have our own home permanently, and we're not going to have to worry about paying a certain someone 6-figure rent every month, and. Hopefully we can celebrate, these massive days we've had, because as much as we had some big days at the Kassam, I go back to the promotion to League One. It didn't quite feel. It was great in the moment, but it didn't quite feel like a whole club. While we always sat there with a stand missing. But, gentlemen, any closing thoughts for this episode of Walking the London Road, Com?
Yeah, we should absolutely call the stadium Ancient Woodland.
That'd be the green area that they're planning to build outside of it.
Yeah.
Well,
what do I want to name the stadium? I got no idea. I just want it to be built at this point. We can figure out the name at another point. I mean,
Thanks so much, gents, for joining us today. We're back next week, of course, to talk about the game against Birmingham City. God, I hope we don't get battered in the South Midlands derby because it's. Oh God, I don't want to go into.
Got any score predictions for it? Wait, sorry, Sam, you got any score predictions for it, or are you pretty bleak in your prediction?
Bleak, honestly, mate. It's a side that were unfortunate to draw 1-1 with Ipswich. So I'm that's a side full of players that played in the Premier League last season. So I'm not looking forward to things.
Get on the Birmingham. Yeah, get on the Birmingham -2 handicap. Yeah, going. Unfortunately, it'll be a cracking atmosphere, I reckon. So it's another sell out both home and away. So there'll be about 30,000 there, so it'll be brilliant atmosphere. I guess that the don't know about you boys, but the pubs will be making a lot of money past probably the 30th minute match day.
I mean, the good thing is it's the championship, so anything can happen. So we could end up winning 5-0. You never know, and then we're going to have a very different conversation next week.
That is
maybe
very
that's
true.
Wishful thinking.
It would be very Oxford United for us to win the next 2 games against Birmingham Coventry.
I was going to say, it would be very Gary Rowett for him to his first away win as Oxford manager to come against Millwall, then a first win of the 25-26 to come against Birmingham. But we'll wait and see. Thanks so much, gents, for joining us, and we'll see you next week on Walking the London Road.